The story begins in the year 447. A colossal war erupted worldwide between the 6 heroes and the menacing Demon Lord. The Demon Lord's army of skeletons charged eagerly onto the battlefield, ready to face off against the heroes. While the skeletons managed to defeat some human soldiers, one of the heroes possessed the extraordinary ability to bring the fallen soldiers back to life. But these heroes had received divine blessings, transforming them into celestial beings with angelic forms. Meanwhile, Demon Lord Leonis observed the unfolding conflict from the comfort of his chamber, peering into a crystal ball. Then, the Demon Lord is told by an assassin named Sherry that other forts have been taken down, and their castle is going to be attacked next. Then, out of nowhere, a colossal tree-like creature emerged, further fueling the Demon Lord's anger. He recognized it as the Archsage hero, who had sacrificed his humanity to gain immense power. Leonis gets really angry and wants to destroy the humans. He summons his special weapon, but his loyal companion, Fenrir, reminds him that he made a promise to the goddess Rebellion when he was still a human. With a heavy heart, Leonis chose to acknowledge defeat. He released his grip on the staff and began to make his way toward a nearby door, even as his castle crumbled around him. Before disappearing from sight, he made a solemn oath that he would return, rekindling his strength after 1,000 years, with the sole purpose of reclaiming his rightful throne. And so, Leonis sealed his own soul within the hallowed confines of the Grand Mausoleum. 1,000 years later, 2 girls set out to explore the ancient ruins. One of them is named Riselia, and they are on a mission to investigate the underground ruins that had emerged due to an earthquake. Their goal is to search for the lair of creatures known as voids. However, they are only allowed to engage in combat for self-defense. As they venture further, they notice a curious absence of any signs of the voids. Their attention is suddenly grabbed by a fallen sculpture. Riselia explains to her partner, Regina, that they might be in a burial site, and it's common for kings to be buried with valuable items. They wonder if they will stumble upon the tomb of a great king, and they contemplate how lonely it must be if it is indeed the resting place of a king. Soon, they come across a door, but Regina struggles to open it. She believes that the only way to proceed is to forcefully break it open. However, Riselia, the more astute of the two, notices inscriptions on the door and realizes that it's not an ordinary door. Regina decides to explore the surroundings while Riselia uses her skills to decipher the ancient writings on the door. To her astonishment, the door begins to open when she touches it. With caution, Riselia retrieves her gun and approaches a peculiar crystal that disrupts her device. She senses the presence of someone inside and feels compelled to help them. As she peers into the crystal, we get glimpses of a scene from the past when Leonis encountered the goddess of rebellion, named Riselia, to whom he had made a promise. In this flashback during the war, Leonis explained to the goddess that the heroes were wreaking havoc upon the kingdom. He resolved to seal away his own soul to uphold his promise to her. As Riselia witnesses this, she is relieved to know that he still remembers their commitment. As she prepares to leave, Leonis attempts to stop her from departing, but she simply instructs him to find her in the future. Back in the present, Riselia had made up her mind to free the trapped individual. Inside the crystal, Leonis stirred awake, bewildered by the commotion. He was infuriated because the tomb was supposed to be completely sealed. However, he deduced that the reincarnation ceremony had succeeded and 1,000 years had indeed passed. Listening to the girl's voice outside, Leonis employed his magical skills to understand her words. Leonis concluded that she must be a rather foolish grave robber. Determined to show her the might of a demon lord, he employed a potent incantation to shatter the crystal. Initially, Leonis intended to punish the girl for her perceived wrongdoing. However, his plans came to a halt when she regained consciousness and inquired why a child was present. Leonis was taken aback when he realized that he was now in the body of a young boy. He questioned whether the reincarnation had gone wrong. Leonis had used magic to revert his body to a previous form, expecting to return as his formidable demon lord self. Instead, he found himself in his old human form from his days as a hero, known as Leonis the Hero. Riselia checked his condition to ensure he wasn't injured and assured him that everything was now fine, promising to protect him. Leonis seethed at the perceived disrespect toward a demon lord but found a strange comfort in her presence. Eventually, he succumbed to exhaustion and fainted. Upon awakening, Leonis enjoyed some cookies that Riselia had offered him. He grumbled about his new body fainting due to hunger and feeling too comfortable after a hug. Nonetheless, he acknowledged that this girl he had just met might have saved his life. Riselia introduced herself as a 15-year-old knight from the 7 Soul Swordsman Training Academy and asked Leonis for his name. Although he had no idea what she was talking about, Leonis realized that she assumed he was an innocent child. He decided to use her to gather information about the world of today. Starting with the basics, he shared his name, Leonis, reflecting on the pride he felt in a name given to him by a special person. Riselia found Leonis's name adorable and decided to call him Leo. This frustrated him deeply. She asked him about his age. He says that he is 10-year-old. Then she asks what he is doing here and conclude herself that this might be the work of Void. He clarified to Riselia that he had no knowledge of the Void, prompting her to explain that the Void had appeared as an enemy of humanity 64 years ago, seemingly from another world. They relentlessly attacked humans, and knights like herself wielded swords to defend humanity. Leonis was puzzled by this revelation since in his time, the enemies of humanity were demons like himself. This made him realize that his history as the Demon Lord had likely been forgotten or erased over the years. Riselia explained that she was there to investigate a void nest, and that Leonis was found by accident. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed, and Regina informed them that she had engaged with a colossal void. Riselia shielded Leonis from the collapsing room and vowed to keep him safe. An ogre-class void burst into the room, and Riselia prepared her gun with a limit release. Leonis finally saw what a void looked like but decided he wouldn't tolerate any more violence in the mausoleum where his friends rested. He, Leonis, the great demon lord master of ancient and forbidden spells, began weaving a powerful incantation to erase the ogre from this world. However, he tripped and fell, lamenting his weak human body. Riselia worried that her weapon might not be strong enough, but Regina arrived with her bazooka, blasting off the monster's arm. They made their escape, and Leonis contemplated how everything seemed to be going wrong. The reincarnation had not gone as planned. He had been reduced to a fragile mortal, his kingdom was far from restored, and his castle was being vandalized by monsters. While Leonis was confident in his ability to defeat the creature, he refrained from using his powers to maintain his hidden identity as the Demon Lord. They encountered a wyvern-class void, which terrified Riselia. She transformed her gun into a sword, opting for close-quarter combat. Leonis reluctantly decided to reveal his power, casting a spell that would end the fight. However, Riselia believed it better to push him to the ground. She turned her attention to the void, but it gravely injured her. Leonis rushed to her side, questioning her sacrifice. She had no answer and urged him to find Regina to escape. As another void appeared, Riselia apologized for not being able to protect him. Holding her hand as she passed away, Leonis couldn't help but think she was foolish for sacrificing her life for him, even though the attack wouldn't have harmed him. He considered bravery like her stupid, but admitted he had developed a bit of a soft spot for the brave girl. Her actions reminded him of Riselia, the goddess of rebellion, who had protected him when he was a human hero. The very humans he had tried to protect had ultimately betrayed him, leading him to become the Demon Lord. Several voids surrounded Leonis, but their attacks proved futile against the formidable magic barrier of the great Demon Lord. Leonis, who was now human once more, found himself experiencing emotions again, and anger was the prevailing feeling. Summoning his staff, Leonis proclaimed that the voids all deserved to meet their end. His first spell unleashed a giant gravitational orb that crushed one of the voids. He explained that they would all face punishment for their deeds. The void attempted to resist, but Leonis had reached his limit and obliterated the creature. Another void, seemingly unaware of its inability to penetrate his barrier, attempted an attack. In response, Leonis weaponized his barrier, sending multiple spikes through the creature. The final void, witnessing the demise of its companions, tried to flee. However, Leonis was determined not to let it escape. He unleashed a devastating fire spell that consumed the void with his flames. Leonis emerged victorious but noticed that his attack had left behind the creature's bones. This was a novel development. Even against the most formidable monsters in the past, he hadn't encountered this outcome. It dawned on him that in his current form, he possessed at best only a third of the strength he used to wield. Returning to Riselia's side, Leonis found her barely clinging to life. He declared himself as the great Demon Lord, emphasizing that he typically didn't care about human life. However, he had respect for noble souls, and Riselia had defended him with her life. Leonis acknowledged her spirit and contemplated his limited healing abilities. He was a master of all magic related to death, but lacked proficiency in healing. Still, he decided to do what he could for her. As he used a spell to return her blood to her, he noticed a strange mark on her leg. Leonis wondered how she would react when she learned the truth about his identity, whether she would be angry or fall into despair. After completing the spell, Riselia lay unconscious, and Regina frantically attempted to send her a message using a remote-talking magical tool. Leonis didn't understand how it worked but was impressed by the advancements in mankind's magical technology. Then, Riselia woke up, and Leonis greeted her. She immediately got up, thanking God that Leonis was safe. Leonis found this reaction strange because typically people tend to worry about their own well-being first. Riselia was shocked to be alive, as she was certain she had been deeply wounded, but Leonis explained that her injury wasn't as severe as it appeared, and he had healed it with sacred magic. Riselia was confused when Leonis mentioned magic because she recalled that neither she nor Regina had used spells during their fight. It was evident that they couldn't use spells and relied on their weapons, crafted with advanced magical techniques. Riselia assumed that when Leonis mentioned magic, he must have been referring to the power of the holy sword, but Leonis had no idea what she was talking about. She went on to explain that some holy swords had healing powers, and she believed that was why the void had captured him. However, Leonis remained puzzled. She clarified that the holy sword was a power awakened by mankind to combat the void. A few years after the void's appearance, humanity was on the brink of defeat. Some children developed strange powers, many taking the form of weapons, and these were called holy swords. Regina's holy sword was named Jackal. The origin of these weapons was unknown, but many seemed to reflect the personality of their wielders, a weapon embodying the soul. Riselia mentioned that she hadn't been granted the power of the holy sword yet, and Leonis realized that this was why she had fought with a magical tool. He understood that his magical power was different from what she was describing, and he decided it was best to keep it a secret from everyone. Just then, Regina returned and inquired about what happened to the void that had attacked them. Leonis lied, claiming that he had been so terrified of the monsters that he was shaking, and before he knew it, they had disappeared for some unknown reason. The girls accepted his explanation, and they all left the ruins on a motorcycle. While riding, Regina wondered about the boy, speculating that he might have been abandoned for being a coward. Riselia explained that he had been captured by the void, and his memories were all jumbled. Regina continued to tease him throughout the trip, thinking that startling him might help him regain his memories. Leonis endured her playful behavior and questioned how an immortal demon lord could be teased by such a girl. As they approached their destination, Riselia explained that it was the final stronghold of humanity, constructed to combat the void. It was known as the Garden of the Seven Sacred Swords Academy. Leonis was filled with wonder at the sight of this place, recognizing that it was a new world, 1,000 years distant from his own. The story continues. As Leonis and Celia entered the bustling city, Celia's mind wandered back to her childhood, about 6 years ago. Back then, she dwelled in the Third Assault Garden, a place of relative peace. However, that serenity was shattered when the Voids launched a sudden attack. In the face of this dire threat, every able-bodied human took up arms to combat the invading Voids, leaving the others huddled in a bunker, anxiously awaiting news of the outcome. Within that bunker, we find Celia and her loyal maid, Regina. Fear gripped Regina's heart as she trembled, unsure of what was happening above ground. Celia, on the other hand, tried her best to provide solace. She spoke of her unwavering faith that her parents, who served as holy knights, would shield the populace from harm. With conviction, Celia recounted her parents' and sisters' resolute words, describing their plans once the Voids were defeated. Gradually, Regina's trembling subsided, and a tentative smile graced their faces. They pledged to enroll in the Excalibur Academy and follow in the footsteps of holy knights to safeguard their fellow citizens. However, beyond the confines of their shelter, the situation was far from joyful. Explosions outside caused the bunker to shudder, triggering panic in Celia. She yearned to rush outside and join her family in the ongoing battle, but Regina restrained her. Tearfully, the two girls clung to each other, their hearts heavy with concern for their loved ones. A few hours later, the heavy bunker door finally creaks open, revealing the devastated city beyond. Celia, overwhelmed with sorrow, breaks into tears and apologizes to Regina. She had assured her that everything would be fine, but those words had turned out to be empty promises. Back in the present, Regina inquires of Leonis whether he's ever laid eyes on an assault garden before. He responds affirmatively, marveling at its incredible sight. Regina goes on to explain that the city is currently stationed here, but it's typically on the move, deployed to the front lines to combat void colonies. She further clarifies that the city has the capability to generate power, produce food, and even traverse the ocean. Leonis, perplexed by the notion of such a colossal entity in motion, resolves to scrutinize the human forces before embarking on his mission to resurrect his Dark Lord's army. Upon entering the city, Celia elucidates that those who wield the power of a holy sword must enroll in the Excalibur Academy. While they aren't obliged to confront the Voids directly, they are expected to collaborate during times of war. Leonis views this as an opportunity to deepen his understanding of holy swords. The girls pledge to meet him once he completes his inspection. After their departure, Leonis enters the bathroom and becomes greatly distressed because his spell didn't go as planned. His intention had been to reincarnate himself 1,000 years into the future in his Dark Lord form, but instead, he found himself reincarnated in his previous human hero form. In his moment of frustration, He calls out two names, Blackas and Sherry, and they emerge from his shadow. Sherry serves as his personal maid, while Blackas is his closest and most trusted friend, holding the title of the Prince of the Realm of Shadows. Leonis remarks that it has been quite some time since their last encounter, but Blackas is more curious about Leonis' new appearance. Leonis, in a friendly gesture, pets Blackas and explains that due to an error, he has returned to his original human body. This marks the first time Blackas has seen Leonis in his hero form. Sherry, who had remained silent until now, finally speaks up and admits that she finds Leonis' new form rather adorable. Leonis, initially irked, questions whether she is mocking him. The cute girl becomes flustered, but Leonis quickly dismisses the issue, clarifying that he summoned them because he needs a favor. He requests that they investigate the city since it appears to be a vastly different future than he had anticipated. People no longer use magic but possess some unfamiliar and peculiar powers. Blackas mentions that he can sense a different kind of power at play. Leonis reveals that his ultimate objective is to rebuild his Dark Lord army, but to achieve that, they must gather as much information as possible. The two companions return to his shadow, embarking on their investigative mission. Subsequently, Leonis undergoes an inspection process where he is sprayed with a substance, and various machines analyze his data as he continues forward. He attempts to pass through a detector, triggering an alarm, but he skillfully employs a spell to deactivate it. Once the inspection is complete, he receives a temporary ID card. Celia suddenly appears and snatches the card from Leonis, eager to take a picture of it. This leaves him a bit bewildered, but she clarifies that the card serves as proof of his identity within the city. She then informs him that it's time to pay a visit to the academy, and instructs him to hop on her bike. Celia takes Leonis on a brief tour of the city, showcasing the vast commercial district, which leaves Leonis astonished. He remarks on the apparent tranquility of the city, prompting Celia to provide an explanation. She reveals that the 7th Assault Guard, the city they are in, has never experienced a void invasion because it's the newest city. However, they are currently in the process of constructing another one. Celia also divulges that while the Holy Swordsmen are sent to the front lines for battle, the city itself remains secure. The city is organized into 3 main areas: the residential zone, the commercial districts, and the administration sector. In the heart of the city lies the Excalibur Academy, which oversees the military. Upon their arrival, Celia suggests that Leonis freshen up before completing his registration. However, Leonis is quite impressed by the numerous towering buildings surrounding them and inquires if they are all part of the academy. Celia confirms and proceeds to explain the purposes of these buildings, with the dining halls, training grounds, and the dance hall being the most relevant. Leonis expresses some confusion regarding the inclusion of a dance hall, and Celia explains that it is necessary to manifest one's holy sword, as a calm heart and spirit are essential. As they approach the girls' dormitory, they are intercepted by Muselle. Leonis notices that Celia is attempting to avoid Muselle, but Muselle tries to engage them in conversation. He queries Celia about Leonis' identity, but she simply states that Muselle is not involved in the matter. Muselle, in a mocking tone, jests at Celia, implying that her platoon is now accepting youngsters due to their previous failures. Celia confidently asserts that Leonis is indeed a certified holy swordsman, but the other guy dismisses her words as a joke. In contrast, Leonis privately considers this individual to be blissfully ignorant. Despite his youthful appearance, Leonis opts not to confront him to avoid drawing undue attention. Muselle, the guy in question, urges Celia to abandon her pursuit of becoming a holy sword user, and instead join his platoon. He boasts about their top-ranking status within the academy, promising her a place to stay if she does so. With a smug grin, he taunts Celia as a failure who cannot manifest a holy sword despite carrying the lineage of holy swordsmen. Celia bows her head, accepting the harsh reality. Leonis, however, is puzzled by Celia's inability to manifest a holy sword. He recalls her inability to wield that power in the ruins and understands why she took the hit to protect him. He questions her choice of attending a school for holy swordsmen. Muselle's true personality then surfaces, as he demands Celia join his platoon and become his plaything like the other girls. He claims this will keep her from participating in perilous missions. Leonis briefly speculates that Muselle might be using some form of mind control magic on the girls, but soon realizes that it might be the power of Muselle's holy sword. Celia declines Muselle's offer, enraging him. She tries to continue on her way with Leonis, but Muselle loses control of his emotions and begins grabbing her hair. Leonis intervenes, instructing Muselle to stop. However, Muselle remains bewildered. In response, Leonis casts a spell, causing Muselle's body to tremble in fear, not understanding what's happening. Muselle drops to his knees in pain, and Leonis leans in close to whisper words into his ear, asserting that Celia belongs to him and that Muselle has no right to touch her. Leonis ceases his magic, allowing Muzel the opportunity to activate his holy sword. However, another student arrives and informs them that using the holy sword's power without authorization is against the Academy's rules, especially in the girls' dormitory sector. Muzel retreats, his bravado replaced by fear. Leonis privately reflects that he can't believe he allowed himself to be provoked by such a trivial matter, but he doesn't regret defending Celia. While he considers himself one of the more forgiving Dark Lords, Celia is one of his loyal followers. Meanwhile, Celia expresses her gratitude to the girl who came to their aid, named Elfine. Elfine suggests that Muzel had been showing an interest in Celia. She then inquires if Leonis is the boy Celia had saved in the ruins. Leonis begins to realize that Celia's friends are enmeshed in complex plots. Elfine reveals herself as Celia's platoon operator, prompting Leonis to understand that they have been in constant communication. The story continues as Celia woke up in her bed, confused about what had just happened. Leonis explained that she had passed out due to lack of energy, and he had to share some of his own with her. But his words were puzzling, so Celia inquired about his real name. He replied that he was an ancient sorcerer who had returned to life from a crystal, and he possessed skills that had been long forgotten. However, his magic could only control death and couldn't heal or resurrect anyone because he lacked the power of holy magic. The only way he could save her was by turning her into an undead being. Celia then asked if Leonis could use the power of the holy sword. In response, Leonis cast a level 10 spell called Create Elder Undead to demonstrate his ability. He had been unsure if it would work, but Celia was reborn as the Vampire Queen, the most powerful of all undead creatures. She worried about her newfound vampiric nature, but Leonis assured her that her instincts made her drink some of his blood because she had no mother. Celia believed him and forgave him for not saving her in the conventional way. Celia decided to share her story with Leonis. 6 years ago, she had lost her city while protecting her parents from an attack. She explained how she and Leonis had used holy swords to defend the city to the best of their ability. However, she felt sadness about having to live with Regina afterward. To become stronger and bring her holy sword to life, she had undergone rigorous training. Leonis was unaware that Celia could still summon a holy sword, so she asked him about it. He simply replied that being a vampire queen had made her much stronger. Celia was still a bit apprehensive, but her mood lightened when Leonis's stomach audibly rumbled. She teased him for spending more time in a girl's room than eating, and they decided to head to the cafeteria. At the cafeteria, Celia questioned whether she could still eat normal food as a vampire. Leonis assured her that she could since she was a high-ranking vampire, and it would help her recover. However, Celia wasn't pleased with the idea of taking so long to regain her strength through food. She asked him if he had decided on his order, but Leonis only requested bread, confessing that he didn't know how to make most dishes. Celia advised him to eat well, but he nonchalantly claimed that the undead didn't need food. This upset Celia, and Leonis realized that she was still adjusting to her new undead life. He apologized and agreed to order food as she suggested. Afterward, Leonis revealed a secret gold coin, thinking to himself how rich a demon lord would be. However, his wealth turned out to be a lie when Celia asked him about it. He tried to pass himself off as a wealthy individual who could buy any business, but Celia saw through his act, leaving him embarrassed. When Celia pointed out that real gold or money had lost its value in the present, and everything was acquired using credits, they overheard a conversation in the background. A girl was talking to two guys, and the guys were complaining because she wasn't wearing the school's uniform. They tried to take advantage of the situation, and one of them even grabbed her. However, the girl swiftly knocked them down with her wooden sword. She reprimanded them, stating that she had permission to dress that way, causing the guys to run away. Celia rushed to the girl and called her Sakuya. She asked what had happened, and Sakuya explained that she was supposed to be in a tactical drill, but she found it boring. Instead, she decided to gamble until those two guys caught her. Celia then turned her attention to Leonis, and explained that a line had already mentioned him. Celia kept her version of the story, saying that Leonis had been abducted by voids, and she had saved him. Sakuya introduced herself and shook Leonis's hand. He quickly realized that she was someone who had dedicated her entire life to sword training, and he wondered about the extent of her training. Celia then revealed that Sakuya was the vanguard attacker for her platoon, and she ended up paying for everyone's lunch. While they were eating, Leonis asked Sakuya why she was dressed the way she was. Sakuya explained that it was the traditional clothing of her homeland and a memento of her sister. Her village had been attacked and destroyed by voids, and she was the sole survivor. Now, she was training relentlessly to become stronger and seek revenge. Leonis apologized for bringing up such painful circumstances, and Sakuya explained that typically, people were required to wear the Academy's attire. However, she had received special permission to wear her traditional outfit as it was a keepsake from her sister. After the meal, Celia and Leonis headed to the training grounds to register Leonis's holy sword. There, they met Alto, the instructor responsible for his examination. Alto explained that she would assess him to determine the type of holy sword he possessed. Leonis summoned his demon lord staff, and Alto questioned his abilities. Leonis described himself as a support who could adapt to various situations. He noticed some robots around and inquired about them. Celia explained that these robots were void simulators capable of copying void combat patterns. Alto instructed Leonis to fight one set to a low level. Leonis believed that a level 2 gravity spell would suffice, but it unexpectedly destroyed all the robots. Celia and Alto were amazed by his power. Alto probed further, questioning if his holy sword was genuinely a support type, and their conversation drew the attention of those around them. Alto began reprogramming the void simulator to a higher level when they were interrupted by an annoying figure named Mule. He expressed his desire to handle the examination. Leonis agreed, but he also ridiculed Mule by claiming he was on the same level as the robots. This infuriated Mule, causing him to call his holy sword useless. His pet companions summoned air weapons, but Celia intervened, stating that a 5-on-1 fight was unfair. Mule insisted that his holy sword could control others as its power. Leonis confidently accepted the challenge, agreeing to the condition that if he lost, Celia would join Mule's platoon and become his subordinate. Leonis knew Mule's intentions and decided to turn the situation to his advantage. If Mule lost, he must promise never to bother Celia again. Mule, who was clearly overconfident, accepted Leonis's challenge with a swagger. Leonis boldly proclaimed that he wouldn't allow anyone to touch his girl, causing Celia to blush. Celia then asked Alto for a training sword, a holy sword replica designed for practice. After arranging their positions, they decided to begin. Celia wasted no time, dashing forward and swiftly knocking down one of Mule's companions. She then moved to confront Mule, but another girl intervened to block her. Leonis observed, noticing that Celia's abilities had improved since becoming a vampire queen. One of the other girls aggressively smashed her weapon into the ground, forcing Celia to parry the assault. Mule, in his typical fashion, ordered one of his pets to engage Leonis while Celia was distracted. The girl rushed forward and launched a lightning attack, but Leonis easily used a low-level spell to block it with his shadow, followed by restraining the girl. Meanwhile, Celia began gaining the upper hand in her battles against the two girls. A third girl attempted to join the fight, but Celia swiftly took her down. Celia then decided to deal with Mule, who used his wand to immobilize her. Celia was perplexed by this development, and Mule explained that it was his true power, the Holy Sword of Dominion. He knocked Celia's sword out of her hand and made lewd threats, promising to deal with her later. But first, he turned his attention to Leonis, who was somewhat cornered. Leonis still had the first girl restrained, but the other 3 girls were surrounding him. Mule contemplated using a level 2 spell to eliminate them all at once, but then he heard Celia talking to herself. She mentioned her strong desire to protect Leonis, and she began to pray for her holy sword to appear. Her intense longing produced a bright light in her hands, which transformed into her holy sword, Regina. Regina appeared to Celia's astonishment, and it allowed her to break free from the restraints. Mule, the perpetual loser, couldn't fathom what was happening. This gave Celia the opportunity to rush forward and destroy his wand, freeing all the girls from his control. With no other option, Mule conceded defeat. The onlookers, including Regina, cheered for Celia, who was overwhelmed by her newfound power. Later, she thanked Leonis for his assistance, but he modestly dismissed it, stating that she did it out of duty. Celia was puzzled, but Leonis clarified that her duty was to protect her master, which, in this case, was him. She didn't fully understand but laughed it off, promising to protect him. She patted him affectionately and asked for a favor. She wanted Leonis to make her stronger and join her platoon. Leonis quickly accepted her request, sealing the deal. To celebrate, they threw a welcoming party, where Regina cooked a grand feast. This celebration was also in honor of Celia's awakening as a holy sword wielder. Aline and Sakuya congratulated her, and inquired about Leonis's performance during the examination. They briefly discussed naming her holy sword, but Celia brushed off the topic. Aline invited Leonis to her room to assess his skills, leading to a discussion about where he would stay since there were no available rooms in their dorm. Regina eagerly volunteered to host him, and Sakuya also expressed interest, despite her long hours away from the dorm. Aline chimed in, mentioning that she had plenty of room in her own quarters. With so many offers, Leonis was faced with a dilemma, but Celia stepped in, asserting that she was his guardian and would ensure his comfort at night. The other girls suspected something, but Leonis declared his preference to stay with Celia, not because of the cold winter but to protect their secrets, especially since she needed to obtain mana from his blood as promised. Leaving the festivities behind, Leonis went to Aline's room for the examination. She used her holy sword, the Eye of, to scan his data, and he was suitably impressed. However, Aline revealed that she had lost her holy sword powers and now had limited capability. She recounted her past as the main attacker for the 7th Platoon, the most formidable group, which typically undertook void extermination missions. 6 months ago, they were ambushed by voids while investigating ruins, and their group fell apart. She was the sole survivor and lost most of her power, leading her to isolate herself. Celia's frequent visits had convinced her to join the platoon. Aline concluded the biological data scan, but she discovered something intriguing. Leonis seemed to enjoy staring at her chest. She scolded him, reminding him that being naughty wasn't appropriate. He noticed a map on her monitor and asked for permission to examine it. She granted his request, providing him with a tablet displaying the map. As he examined it, Leonis spotted areas with concentrated void activity over the past few months. He summoned Blacka and discovered that the voids had similar characteristics to the monsters used by the Dark Lords against humanity. He instructed Blacka to investigate these locations, and the familiar disappeared. Simultaneously, a group of divers explored underwater ruins and encountered a massive tree with a face. The tree called out Leonis' name and attacked the divers. The story takes us back to the year 432 of the Holy God calendar, where we see Leonis being guided by someone in the Sidon wastelands. The man explains that they're already short-staffed in the quarry and can't afford to have a gargoyle terrorizing them. He's relieved now that the great hero of the Holy Sword is coming to their rescue. Leonis modestly says that he's just doing his duty because the crown ordered him to keep this area safe. The guide praises Leonis for coming to their aid while the other 6 heroes are occupied protecting the imperial capital and the holy city. Leonis has a special fondness for battling monsters, and he even expresses excitement at the idea of capturing and training one. The guide is taken aback by Leonis' enthusiasm, thinking it doesn't sound like the words of the hero who defeated Zalvati, the demon lord. He then leads Leonis to the quarry, where Leonis inquires about the gargoyle's whereabouts. Strangely, the guide vanishes, and things take a sinister turn. Mages suddenly use a spell to paralyze Leonis, leaving him unable to move. A group of men appears, and they proceed to tie Leonis up. Leonis struggles to break free, but the men attack him with spears. After a valiant effort, Leonis succumbs to his injuries and dies. The men responsible for his demise believe they no longer need to fear Leonis as a threat to their master. They reflect that an agreement might have been possible if Leonis had shown any interest in money or power. After some time, a woman named Riselia arrives. She communicates with Leonis' departed soul, expressing sadness and suggesting that Leonis might have sensed the trap deep down. She acknowledges him as the world's savior who fell victim to those in authority. Leonis responds that such stories are not uncommon. Riselia then questions if he holds any hatred towards those who betrayed him. Leonis, however, believes that it doesn't necessarily make those people bad or evil. Riselia inquires if Leonis believes in a just world, but he remains indifferent. She realizes that this is his perspective and shares her intention to rebel against the world. She invites Leonis to join her. Puzzled, Leonis questions why she extends the invitation. Riselia reveals she's been observing Leonis for a while and has developed a liking for him. She finds heroes boring and asks Leonis to become hers. We return to the present as Leonis wakes up and notices bite marks on his neck. He quickly rouses Celia from her sleep. Bewildered, Celia questions what just occurred. Leonis shows her a special mark and explains that it symbolizes his authority. He can use it to make his followers obey him easily, making it effortless to wake her up. Celia begins to wonder if this means she has to do everything Leonis asks of her. Leonis confirms that she does but reassures her that he would never ask for anything inappropriate. Celia recalls how Leonis was a gentleman during their bath, and Leonis mentions that's why he'd like her to behave like a lady. He asks if she drank his blood while he was asleep, and Celia admits that she did because it was late and she couldn't wait. Leonis is understanding but suggests she should at least inform him beforehand. Celia apologizes, and at that moment, she receives a call from Elfine. Elfine shares that something has been troubling her, and explains that a strategy meeting was called earlier. She suspects it's related to the research team on a marine survey, as they haven't shared their investigation results. Elfine believes the morning strategy meeting can't be a coincidence. She promises to keep Celia informed and ends the call. This leaves Leonis wondering if something is amiss. However, Celia brushes it off, saying it's nothing, and suggests that since she doesn't have any classes today, they could continue their training. We shift to the meeting Elfine mentioned. Castros Necchio, the acting commander of the 7th Assault Guard, is informed that communication with the 13th Platoon was lost about 11 hours ago near Anchor 4. Vite Leon, the chairman of the board, notes that their commander spends half a year at the imperial capital for official duty, and these issues always seem to arise in his absence. A researcher reports detecting void activity in the area in question. but it disappeared in just 3 seconds. Gillian Cooper, the divisional commander, finds this speed unusual, and he questions whether the sensors malfunctioned. The researchers confirm that they didn't, and they provide images. Castro suggests that these images resemble tree roots, while Gillian wonders if it's a new Void species, or even a Void Lord. Veidt asks if there's any proof of it being a Void Lord, but Gillian conveys that it's merely conjecture. Veidt emphasizes that a Void Lord is akin to a stampede, reminding everyone of the tragedy that occurred 6 years ago when Voids attacked the 3rd Assault Garden. This tragedy prompted them to enhance the defensive capabilities of the 7th Assault Garden. Boldir Valery, the military advisor, mentions that civilians regularly practice drills due to the past tragedy. Veidt raises concerns about the demi-human district, where people resent the Empire's rule. He questions whether Boldir is confident they won't incite panic. Veidt suggests relocating the city if there's a possibility of a stampede, but Gillian disagrees, arguing that assault gardens were created to combat voids. Castros then reveals that the commander has made a decision to launch an immediate follow-up investigation. Gillian agrees and states that he'll assemble a reconnaissance and force squadron, comprising their top 3 platoons, to carry out this mission. The scene shifts to Celia, who is engaged in training. She faces training robots, and with her skills, she easily overpowers them. Leonis is impressed by her technique and wonders if she had received sword lessons. Celia shares that she had learned the basics from her family when she was young but has been self-taught since joining the academy. She modestly admits that she can't compare to someone as skilled as Sukuya. Leonis believes that a vampire queen's true potential lies in her mana supply and expresses his intention to teach Celia sorcery in the future. He suggests that turning her into a spell blade might be their best course of action. He mentions preparing practical opponents for her, erects a barrier, and summons some of his lowest ranked minions. He encourages Celia to engage with these minions and test her abilities. Celia accepts the challenge and successfully defeats the summoned minions. However, as time goes on, fatigue sets in. Leonis decides to conclude their training session and uses magic to remove the remains of the defeated minions. Celia thanks Leonis for the training and offers to treat him to a meal as a sign of her gratitude. She mentions knowing a good restaurant, but Leonis hesitates, saying he can't keep taking advantage of her hospitality. Just then, his growling stomach betrays his hunger. The story then shifts to the assault garden commencing its reconnaissance mission. Sukuya, having won a bet at the casino, returns to the dorms. Outside, she notices a dog named Blackus without a collar, indicating that he doesn't belong to anyone. She names him Mr. Fluffy Wuffy Blackfur, and shares some of the things she bought with her casino winnings, ensuring he has something to eat if he gets hungry. Regina pays a visit to Elfine's room and asks Aline to taste the batter for some sweet potato rolls she's preparing. Aline finds it perfect. Sukuya enters the room and shares her encounter with the dog. She mentions her intention to introduce him to the others sometime. Sukuya takes the other cup of batter to eat as she's feeling hungry. Regina is curious about why Elfine is wearing her school uniform on their day off. Elfine explains that it's a precaution, as she needs to be ready whenever their teacher calls her. She reveals that she has been tasked with gathering and analyzing intelligence. She mentions that the platoon that went on the Marine survey still hasn't returned, and a reconnaissance and force squadron has been dispatched to investigate. Later, we find Sherry working at a shop to earn money to buy sweets for Leonis. She is tasked with cutting potatoes but accidentally cuts the utensils along with them. Her employer then asks her to sweep the sidewalk. While doing so, she notices Leonis and Celia driving by the store. She tries to hide from them as Celia purchases some donuts from the shop. After the purchase, Sherry wonders where they might be heading. The scene then transitions to them arriving at the restaurant. Leonis is curious if this is the place Celia had mentioned. Some children come out to greet Celia, leaving Leonis puzzled. Celia explains that this place is both a restaurant and the home of these kids. She asks Leonis to be friendly with them, mentioning they are close to his age. Leonis observes that these kids might be orphans like him and contemplates how their lives must differ. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn when one of the kids playfully flips Celia's skirt. After the kids playfully flipped Celia's skirt, Leonis felt the urge to teach them a lesson. But Celia urged him to stay calm, reminding him that it was just a harmless prank. The restaurant's owner, Frenia, then arrived and wondered who Leonis is. Celia introduced him as the boy she found in the ruins and mentioned that he was a holy swordsman. The kids were excited to hear this and gathered around Leonis, which made him a bit uncomfortable. Celia then revealed that she had brought donuts for everyone, and Frenia decided they would enjoy them later during snack time. While Celia was having a good time with the children, Leonis couldn't help but reflect on how this place seemed to mean a lot to her and was something she wanted to protect. He thought about his own past and how he didn't have a place he felt so strongly about anymore, reminiscing about his lost castle. The story then shifts to the reconnaissance team, who noticed that the specified location was empty. Sukuya and Aline felt some tremors, which put them on high alert. Something unusual was happening, and it left them feeling uneasy. In another part of the story, workers who were checking the food reserves of the assault garden made a startling discovery. The pantry was filled with roots, a development that raised more questions and concerns. This brings an end to our episode. Long ago, in the year 428, there was a city in the Ragna's kingdom under attack by terrifying monsters. Among the chaos, we found a man named Leonis, who stood there alongside a woman named Riselia and an old man known as Ericale. Riselia, the woman, expressed her concerns. She believed waiting for a person named Shadrach and others wasn't a viable option. Ericale, the old man, had a different idea. He believed the only way to end this horrifying ordeal was to cast a spell that would burn down the entire city, monsters and human residents alike. His plan was to rely on Terrace to bring them back to life after the destruction. Ericale argued that reviving the townspeople was possible, making the act of burning them, along with the monsters, the most sensible approach. However, Leonis, who couldn't bear to witness such destruction, took a stand. He drew his sword and disrupted Ericale's spell, arguing that the idea of wiping out an entire town and then resurrecting them was too troublesome and morally wrong. Instead, Leonis decided to face the monsters head-on. He engaged in a fierce battle with the monsters, demonstrating incredible courage and skill. The townspeople, witnessing his bravery, began to cheer for him. Ericale, on the other hand, harbored concerns about Leonis. He saw the immense power within the hero wielding the holy sword and feared that this power might lead to Leonis' downfall in the future. He believed that Leonis was dangerous, and the very power that made him a hero could become his own undoing someday. We are back to the current situation, where a strange void, like a tree, has made its way into the assault garden. Meanwhile, in the control room, people were puzzled about where this void had disappeared to. Jillian, one of the people in the room, suggested that it might have crystallized again and stressed the importance of finding and eliminating it before it turns into a threat once more. Diglaus, another person in the room, mentioned that a skilled swordswoman from the 18th platoon wanted to share her findings with them. When they heard the two-digit designation, Fate thought she must be a student. Diglaus, however, clarified that she was not just any student. She was exceptionally gifted in research and data analysis and happened to be the daughter of the Fillet family. Fate added that her father had been a valuable addition to the Arms Development Council, and they should listen to what she had to say. Diglaus then connected them to the swordswoman, Elfine, and she began to explain her investigation results. Elfine reported that a few minutes ago, she had detected localized micro-vibrations in Block 62, which was part of the controlled access area beneath the assault garden. At the same time and location, she also picked up mono waveforms with distinct characteristics. After analyzing these signals and removing background noise, she concluded that they did not match any known magic device. She also noticed fluctuations in spatial mass that caused disruptions in the magnetic field, resulting in mobile network outages. Similar phenomena were observed in Block 59 just moments later. Taking all of this into account, she suggested that the data pointed to the presence of void activity within the assault garden. Heroes and the others were surprised by this revelation, and the researchers in the room confirmed that they were subtly detecting vibrations. They mentioned that they had received reports of strange noises in Block 59 and were currently investigating the source. Fate questioned why the void's feedback wasn't registering on the mana scale, and the researcher explained that the feedback level was below the scale's threshold. However, the time and location of the vibrations did match. Jillian then wondered how the void managed to enter the assault garden, and a researcher explained that there were gaps in the float module cluster's design. The void might have slipped through one of these cracks. The male researcher added that they were detecting minor damage to the bulkhead in Block 31, suggesting that the void was on the move again. Fate pondered why the void wasn't using magic, and Elfine suggested that it might be intentionally disguising its movements to infiltrate the city further. Fate expressed his surprise, as voids were not typically known for this level of intelligence. Elfine concluded by asking if they had ever found a crystal indicating the disappearance of this particular void. In the room, the people received a report about roots growing in the pantry. They sent someone to check it out. Meanwhile, in Platoon 18, Regina couldn't reach Celia, and Elfine decided to send one of her drones to the facility where Celia had gone. Regina asked Elfine if the city was under invasion by voids, and Elfine hoped there weren't too many of them. She told them to be prepared to move. Sherry had disappeared from her workplace. At a restaurant, children were having lunch. One of them, Dean, asked Leonis if he could see his holy sword, Tessara. Another child, Tessara, said Dean shouldn't bother Leonis like that and expressed admiration for Leonis being able to wield a holy sword. A team of soldiers arrived at the pantry, and they asked for further orders. The roots in the pantry became active and started attacking, so the soldiers fought back. Baldur suggested issuing an evacuation alert as soon as possible. Heroes tried to reach the commander, but couldn't get through. Jillian mentioned that there seemed to be only one target, so they should be able to handle it themselves. Baldur called a board meeting to get preparations underway. The video feed from the pantry was restored, and they found out that the Void had managed to escape. Jillian wondered what this thing was, and he noted that Void attacks were supposed to be brief and isolated. The researchers noticed the path the Void was taking and realized it was heading toward the power plant. Elfine mentioned that if this Void was a powerful one, called a Void Lord, and it managed to access the huge energy reserves in the power plant, it could trigger a big problem. Heroes then instructed everyone to protect the power plant. Jillian pointed out that the power plant had a strong defense system in place, and he sent his men there. The Void entered the power plant, and the defense system activated, shooting at the Void. The soldiers also opened fire on the Void. Meanwhile, heroes gave the order to switch the assault garden into fortress mode. They also started evacuating the citizens into shelters and prepared the military personnel for potential trouble. Everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. Jillian said he would set up his command post in the command room and asked Diglas to stay there as well. The scene changes to the children in the restaurant, and they're asking Leonis to show them his holy sword. Celia suggests that Leonis should give them a glimpse of it since the kids are asking so nicely. Leonis decides to treat the kids to an even more exciting show, and he makes some of his small skeletons perform tricks. However, the kids are grossed out by the sight of the skeletons. Meanwhile, the soldiers are still firing at the Void. Unfortunately, the intercept system in the power plant room gets destroyed. The Void then makes contact with the power plant, causing the soldiers to stop shooting because they're afraid of damaging the power plant. The Void starts draining energy from the power plant, and this puts the city on high alert. Celia notices that the assault garden is undergoing a mode shift and sees a large number of Voids attacking it. She can't believe that a stampede of Voids is happening here. The city completes the mode shift and launches a high-altitude emergency signal. Fate mentions that it will take 3 days for assistance from the capital to arrive, and wonders if they can hold out that long. Diglaus mentions that they have to hold out and says they've trained their holy swordsmen well, and they're not so weak that they'd give up in just 3 days. Meanwhile, Platoon 18 is somewhere in the city, and Regina wonders what to do about Celia. Elfine explains that they're expected to defend their assigned district in emergency, and believes that Celia should be on her way. For now, they should focus on the enemies they have in front of them. The city's defenses activate, and automatic guns start firing at the Voids. Sakuya and the others equip their holy swords and engage in combat with the Voids. Witnessing this, Leonis is impressed by the humans' offensive capabilities. Celia can't get in touch with the academy, so she goes to take the children to the shelter. Leonis encounters Shirley and asks her to protect his minion friends. Shirley expresses her preference to protect Leonis, but he encourages her to go and stop complaining. Celia tries to guide the children to the shelter, but notices Voids outside, prompting her to activate her holy sword and fight them. Leonis believes that Celia has not fully realized her potential as a vampire queen. He asks Celia if she's frightened, and she admits that she is but can't run away in such a critical situation. Leonis sees great promise in Celia and doesn't want these creatures to harm his valuable minion. Celia manages to eliminate a few Voids, and Leonis takes care of the rest with a flame spell. This surprises Celia, and Leonis explains that more Voids are incoming. He notices a dragon-like Void, and it brings back memories. Meanwhile, 3 Ogre-class Voids target Platoon 18, but Sakura deals with them using her lightning blade. Regina and the rest handle the Voids within a 300-meter radius. They spot a Hydra-class Void in the distance, which they find more challenging. Leonis checks out the dragon-like Void and realizes that even the mighty dragon race has been reduced to Voids. He believes that a regular spell won't be enough to defeat it if it has the same magical resistance as a dragon. He asks for the others to keep the other Voids busy while he prepares a powerful spell. Celia battles the other Voids, and Leonis uses this time to cast a spell. He wonders why he's protecting a human city, and decides he can't ignore people who pick a fight with him and his minion. He uses a level 10 spell called Semixis Jura on the dragon-like Void, which manages to bring it down, but it's not enough to defeat it. Leonis realizes that his human body slows down his ability to chant spells. Then, Blaus arrives and distracts the Void. This distraction gives Leonis enough time to cast another level 10 spell called Grand Mezek, which successfully defeats the dragon-like Void. Celia can't believe that Leonis managed to defeat such a massive Void on his own. Suddenly, the earth below Celia starts to crack open, and roots emerge, grabbing her and pulling her inside the cracks. The Void Lord emerges from the crack, and Leonis realizes that the Void Lord is none other than Ericol. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more anime recaps. This is episode 6 of the Demon Sword Master of Excalibur Academy. The story takes us back to the year 434 in the Holy God calendar, when Leonis returns to the capital of Necrozoa after a battle. Riselia warmly welcomes him back, and Leonis proudly tells her that he won the battle. He presents the spoils of war to her. Riselia admires the spoils and asks him to keep them safe for her. During their conversation, Riselia mentions that Leonis has become quite the demon lord. Leonis shares that he has acquired a variety of powerful spells and made a new friend, Blackies, a royal from the Shadow Kingdom. Blackies has become involved in a troublesome feud, but Leonis offers him shelter in his shadow when needed. He learned a special spell from Blackies to do this. Riselia, in turn, expresses her desire to give Leonis a gift for his victory. She takes off the holy sword that Leonis once wielded as a hero. She explains that the holy sword no longer suits him, so she transforms it into a demon sword. This demon sword has a unique feature. It can only be drawn when a specific condition is met, and Leonis already knows what that condition is. Riselia hints that this sword will challenge Leonis's true nature. The story returns to the present, where Leonis is surprised to see Ericol again after 1,000 years. He notices that Ericol is about to create more void creatures and suspects that Ericol might be causing this commotion. In an attempt to stop Ericol, Leonis uses a fire spell, but Ericol escapes by going underground. Leonis realizes that the mark of control on his hand is still there, suggesting that Celia is still alive. He thinks that Ericol is trying to lure him out, and he's willing to play along, determined to defeat Ericol once and for all. Blackies joins them and mentions that their mortal enemy has returned. Leonis explains that Ericol has become a Void Lord and is different from what he used to be. He believes that Ericol's return may also mean that Riselia is alive somewhere out there. Blackies wonders why humans are outside the restaurant, exposing themselves to danger. Leonis notices that the people are staring at him, something he's used to because his immense power has always struck fear into people's hearts, even back when he was a human hero. Leonis advises the children to stay inside for safety. Tess thanks Leonis for protecting them, saying they are fine now, and asks him to save Celia. Leonis is touched by their lack of fear and promises to rescue Celia. He uses a powerful barrier spell, Zodama, to encase the restaurant in a protective barrier and summons some of his warriors to safeguard the children. He feels that while he has no obligation to protect these people, ignoring the safety of those near his minions would tarnish his reputation as a demon lord. Blackies then shares some food that Kua gave him, mentioning that he received it near Leonis's residence. Leonis, feeling hungry, takes some for himself. Suddenly, they hear a sound and discover one of Celia's earpieces left behind. Through it, they hear Elfine's voice, and it becomes clear that the 18th platoon is currently battling a formidable Hydra-class void and holding off other void creatures. Elfine explains her situation and urgently asks Celia to come help. Leonis informs her that Celia has been taken by the Void Lord, but he's determined to rescue her. He requests Elfine's help in locating Celia using her holy sword. Elfine, however, expresses concern, deeming it too dangerous, and suggests that the platoon responsible for the area handle the situation. Leonis disagrees, noting there's no one available, and waiting could be too late. He asks Elfine if she can use her holy sword to see the area. Elfine complies, and when she views the area, she asks Leonis if he's the one who defeated all the void creatures. Leonis assures her he'll explain later, and implores her to trust him. Elfine then uses her holy sword to locate Celia's biosignature, and discovers that Celia is in the power plant block. In the meantime, a Hydra void attempts to attack Elfine, but Sherry comes to her rescue. Sherry hides and thinks that working with Leonis is demanding but easier than working in a donut shop. The scene shifts to Leonis, who is riding on Blackies and heading towards the power plant. Blackies says he knows where it is and asks Leonis why he sent Sherry to help the humans. Leonis explains that Sherry may not be a skilled mage, but she used to be an assassin sent to kill him. She should be capable of handling the monsters. Blackies understands that, but questions why Sherry was sent when they are facing one of the 6 heroes. Leonis mentions that Elfine's holy sword abilities are valuable, and Regina is his minion's maid. Blackies finds this confusing and can't understand why Leonis cast a barrier around the humans. Leonis admits that he has developed a liking for the humans, and Blackies comments that it's very much like Leonis. They enter the power plant, and Leonis asks Ericol to return his minion. He tries to use a fire spell on Ericol, but it has no effect. Erical remarks that he thought Leonis had perished 1,000 years ago, and Leonis clarifies that he never perished, he just sealed away his soul. Erical mentions that the world is different now, and this world will be rebuilt along with the empty star. Leonis wonders what the empty star is, and Erical explains that he has been chosen as the bearer of good news. He then creates some life forms on his branches, and Leonis is shocked to see that Erical has assimilated the priests from the sacred order. While all this is happening, Celia can hear Leonis's voice through her comms device, and she realizes that he's here to rescue her. However, she can't respond to him. Erical then attacks Leonis with his tree branches, but Leonis dodges and uses a spell to cut off Erical's branches. Blackies notices that their magical energy is depleting rapidly, and Leonis thinks that Erical must be draining their mana because this whole area is under his control. Erical casts several level 8 spells at once, but Leonis evades them and attacks Erical. Erical defends himself with a barrier. Erical casts the same level 8 spells again, and Leonis realizes that he currently has unlimited magical power because he's draining it from the mana crystal. He can cast multiple spells at once due to the priests he has assimilated. He tells Blackies that things are about to get chaotic. Meanwhile, Celia believes she needs to help in Leonis's fight. She tries to free herself, but her restraints are too tight, causing her to bleed. She then summons her holy sword and attempts to cut her bindings, but it doesn't work. On the other side, Leonis and Blackies work together to cast a fire spell, and Erical counters it with his own spell. We then see Celia manifesting some blades from her own blood, using them to break free. Leonis notices where Celia is and hits her with something, causing her to manifest blood wings and escape from Erical's grip. Erical asks Leonis what he has done, and Leonis explains that he merely supplied his minion with some of his mana-infused blood. Leonis reunites with Celia, and he observes that she has become more skilled with her vampire powers. Erical announces his intent to crush Leonis, and unleashes a powerful spell. Blackies realizes that Erical plans to incinerate the entire city, including Ting, the city's ruler. Leonis is determined to defeat Erical, and asks Celia to buy him some time. Celia uses blades made of her own blood to shield Leonis. Leonis believes he no longer needs to be cautious now that he has his minion back. He reveals that the condition for unsheathing his demon sword is protecting his kingdom. He draws the holy sword sealed within his staff and claims the 7th Assault Garden as his domain. He declares that all who reside there will become his minions, and he'll be duty-bound to protect them. He wields the demon sword named Daneslave, surprising Blackies, who is taken aback that the demon sword has recognized Leonis's decision. Erical questions how Leonis obtained that sword and states that it's impossible to alter the world's catastrophic fate. Leonis responds by asserting that he will challenge destiny with his own hands. He uses a sword technique called Ragnalos to defeat Erical. Meanwhile, the forces outside deal with the remaining void creatures, and those in the control room notice that new void creatures have stopped appearing. Their forces are gradually reducing the remaining void creatures. They confirm the Void Lord's disappearance, and it appears that the power plant has shut down due to a massive energy release. Vite believes that the Void Lord must have met its end when it got caught in the power plant meltdown, considering themselves lucky. Leonis and Celia return to the surface, and meet up with the rest of Platoon 18. The scene then shifts to Leonis lying on a bed. He feels sore all over after using the sword skills locked away in the demon sword. He realizes that his human body couldn't handle the stress, and he's completely drained of mana. Celia brings Leonis a sandwich, and she also gives him a medal made by the kids from the Sunny Spot house. Leonis thinks about how he claimed mankind as the subjects of his kingdom, and it's now his duty to protect anyone who pays tribute to the undead king. Celia mentions that using her holy sword consumes a lot of her blood and asks Leonis if she can drink some of his blood. Leonis agrees, and Celia takes a bit of blood from his finger. At that moment, the other girls enter the room and wonder what Celia is doing. Celia explains that she's treating Leonis's wound. Scene changes and we see the princess of the Imperial City heading to the Assault Garden in the sea. She left after hearing about the stampede. Her guard asks if they should turn back now that the stampede is over, but the princess wants to show her appreciation to the holy swordsman who defended the Assault Garden. This brings an end to our episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more anime recaps. The story continues as, after getting rid of the voids, they started fixing things again. Unfortunately, the magical crystal that powered humans was destroyed, so they had to use solar panels temporarily. For Leonis, these new technologies were frightening. Even though he ruled the kingdom, there were many things he didn't understand. Determined to learn, he tried to access the library, but his card was denied. A spirit in the library explained that he needed permission to enter. Leonis was amazed that the spirit still existed in this era. Claiming to be a student, he sought access, but the spirit directed him to the administration. Frustrated, Leonis was about to leave when Regina, a familiar face, appeared. She teased him about recognizing her in public and suggested he enjoy the moment. Leonis, annoyed, asked if she was there to mock him. Regina explained she was returning some video software and questioned what he was doing. He lied, saying he was looking for old texts related to the letters from when he was sealed to jog his memory. Regina found it sad that he couldn't remember his past. She convinced the spirit to let them in, and Leonis marveled at her ability to control spirits. Regina clarified it was just a trick, urging him to keep it a secret for the honor of artificial spirits. Leonis was surprised to learn that spirits were artificially created. He inquired about the original spirit, and Regina revealed it disappeared before the Voids arrived but was rumored to be in the ancient forest. As they delved into ancient languages in the library, their exploration was interrupted by a call. They were summoned to a social gathering organized by the fourth princess, Alteria Ray. Leonis acknowledged the usefulness of the royal family in maintaining order. Celia called, wondering where Leonis was. He explained he was dealing with something and suggested they eat together later. Celia insisted he eat properly, leaving Leonis wondering if he hurt her feelings. Planning to join them at the harbor after checking everything he needed, Leonis asked Regina to leave without him. She assured him not to worry, as she planned to skip the gathering. The scene changes, and some beast men are thinking about kidnapping the fourth princess to use her as leverage for the release of their companions in the capital. They are surprised to see humans living in a peaceful place while they face difficulties outside. However, before they can discuss further, a goblin girl interrupts and questions whether they, without sacred swords, could stand up to humans who possess these powerful weapons. This leads to an argument among them, but a woman hidden in the trees speaks up. She talks about the weakness and doubts within their Alpha Wolf alliance. When she reveals herself, the wolf asks her identity. She claims to be a demi-human like them, expressing her hatred for humans. The elf wonders if she came to assist with the kidnapping, but she surprises them by saying she came to give them a power greater than that of the sacred swords. The woman releases mana, summoning a demonic sword in front of them. She points it at the lion, creating a magic circle that transfers power to him. She explains that it's not a holy sword but a demonic sword given by the goddess herself. The lion uses this power to effortlessly cut trees in half, astonishing the group, as only humans were believed to have holy sword. The woman, named Shranak, clarifies that it's a demonic sword from the goddess. Encouraged by this newfound power, the goblin girl believes they now have a chance to kidnap the princess. The elf suggests that each of them should have a demonic sword and proposes a plan to go to Hyperion soon and rescue their companion. Excitement fills the group. However, Shranak shifts the conversation in an unexpected direction, asking for a favor before their mission. She reveals that her goddess requires a sacrifice and requests them to spare at least one holy sword user. The group agrees, but the Black Lion, curious, asks for her name. Shranak identifies herself as the Elf of the Dark Forest. The scene changes to the port, where Leonis finds a cool new ship and thinks his empire needs 2 of them. Then, he goes shopping for his minions and discovers a beautiful ornament made by elves. He's surprised to find elves there, and the seller mentions other demi-humans like werewolves and tiger men living in the area. Soon, the princess comes to greet everyone, and Regina watches from a distance. Leonis, curious, goes to see what's happening. As he observes, he starts thinking about the princess's popularity. Just then, Celia and the other girls show up, and Celia starts complaining and talking a lot. To cheer her up, Leonis takes out a cat pendant from his pocket, saying he bought it for her. This makes Celia really emotional, and he notices her mood gets a bit better. She jokes about him becoming a demon king of bed in the future, surprising Leonis. He realizes she's just playing around with his flirtatious side. They're told to get on a boat, and Leonis wonders if Regina will join, especially since he thinks she might like that kind of thing. However, the answer is unclear. Fenris, a familiar face, arrives, and Celia recognizes her. Fenris teases Celia about being from the executive council, hinting that they're busy unlike her. F-Line steps in to stop their argument, and Fenris congratulates Celia on her sacred sword awakening. Meanwhile, on the boat, a surprising and unfortunate event takes place as the guards are caught off guard and defeated. The attackers use a demonic sword to not only take them down but also to remove their faces, turning them into masks. This clever trick makes it impossible to figure out who they were. Inside the party, the girls are busy with their activity, and Leonis is engrossed in a book he copied using his automatic magic. As he reads, he becomes convinced that someone is hiding the truth about the past. He notes the absence of information about the 6 heroes and the ancient gods. The records are lost, leaving gaps in knowledge about when magic disappeared and when magical technology first appeared. To pass the time and distract from these thoughts, Leonis shifts the conversation to his current favorite drink. Suddenly, his maid Sherry appears, even though he didn't ask for her. She insists on being there, and Leonis, curious, asks about the boat's situation. Sherry shares that the boat's power source is a magical crystal, similar to the city's defense system. She also mentions finding a flying weapon on the boat. Despite the questions, she admits she still needs to investigate more. Before letting her go, Leonis decides to give Sherry a gift. Using his shadow magic, he presents her with a donut. However, instead of being pleased, Sherry gets angry, stating that a gift shouldn't only be food and calling him stupid. Just as tension rises between them, Celia arrives, and Leonis hurriedly hides everything. Celia, now in a bikini, invites Leonis to swim. However, he starts making excuses, claiming that the human body isn't meant for swimming and that he doesn't have shorts. A perceptive small girl catches on, realizing that Leonis is just making excuses because he can't swim. Celia, undeterred, offers to teach him. What follows is a comical scene where the Demon King, Leonis, is embarrassed for not knowing how to swim. Celia's floats on her blouse hypnotizing, and Elfine even remarks that it's a good thing he learned to swim quickly after Celia's teaching. People start talking about him, and the girls enthusiastically support him, but this leaves Leonis increasingly frustrated. In the evening, Regina is alone, having her meal when guards pass by, talking about that the meeting time is approaching. She wonders about her role in all this. Inside the ship, as the princess is being transported with her personal guard and soldiers, sudden chaos erupts. A man appears, swiftly killing the main guards from behind, followed by another man who eliminates the soldiers. They reveal themselves as beast men after taking off their masks. Despite capturing the princess, she manages to let her pet escape. An elf advises leaving the pet alone. In the hall, the demi-humans reveal their presence after firing the initial shots. Leonis realizes there might be more of them. The wolf among them activates a holy sword, surprising everyone. Fenris tries to do the same but is halted by the goblin when she fires bullets at them. An old elf throws an explosive apple, warning that activating their swords will lead to an explosion. Trapped and fearing the consequences, they collect everyone's phones. The demi-humans announce the princess's kidnapping, and when asked about their demands, the wolf expresses the desire to free their companions. Fenris opposes negotiation with what she labels as terrorists, sparking anger. The goblin intervenes, reminding them of the prohibition against killing sword users. The wolf concedes, indicating they will be sacrifices for the goddess. This revelation catches Leon's attention. Leona, concerned for the princess's safety, assures Celia and disappears. The girls attempt to cover up his disappearance as the situation intensifies. Meanwhile, the dark elf forces the princess to activate the insignia. She inquires about the deal to keep the people on the battleship safe. The dark elf assures her, and the princess, despite her concerns, follows orders. Suddenly, a void invasion occurs, and the dark elf commands them to head towards the voids. She explains that whoever wields the sword filled with demonic energy will be a suitable sacrifice for their god. When the lion, Leon, realizes the true nature of the witch, he contemplates killing her. However, the fire from the sword she gave him starts burning him. The witch questions if he thought he could use the sword she gave to kill her. She warns the remaining person that if he wants to survive, he must continue obeying her commands. The boat begins to leave, leaving Regina puzzled. Approaching the situation, Regina notices something strange and encounters the princess's fox. When she touches it, a message from the princess appears, revealing that the boat has been taken hostage, and she urgently needs Regina's help. Regina, determined, jumps onto the moving boat. On the other side, Leonis is lost. He finds the fox spirit and unexpectedly faces Regina. He questions why she is there, and Regina, visibly shaken, explains that her sister is in danger. The story continues as Regina then tells Leonis that when she was born, there was a red shining star in the sky known as the Scarlet Calamity, a bad omen. Children of the royal family must not be born when that star is visible. Following the rules, the king sentenced her, the fourth princess, to death. Duke Krisia, aware of the situation, pleaded with the king not to kill her. One of the duke's sons, named Edward, brought her back to his house, disguising it as her being buried in the forest. Edward and his wife were blessed with a child of their own, and they welcomed her into their family, claiming that the two girls were sisters. As she grew, she became the personal maid to Riselia to conceal her identity. Her real name is Regina Ray Ultries, known only to her platoon mates. She came here hoping to catch a glimpse of her sister from afar, but this little spirit was at the harbor. Leonis realizes that the spirit belongs to Princess Alteria, and Regina mentions that members of the royal family possess the spirit medium abilities of princess priestesses. This carbuncle is a source spirit, and through it, they can control the ship. Leonis mentions that the ship is moving despite the spirit and princess being separated, indicating something has happened to the princess. Leonis tells Regina that the princess has been taken hostage by a cabal of demi-humans. who have also taken control of the banquet hall. Riselia and the others are handling this, and they can go rescue the princess while leaving the banquet hall to them. Leonis suspects that the ringleader is on the bridge, and they let the carbuncle lead the way. Meanwhile, in the banquet hall, Fenris asks the demihumans where the ship is heading, but they don't answer her. He points his gun at her, mentioning that this gun wouldn't be a problem if they could use their holy swords, but the people over there would not be able to survive if the bomb explodes. Elfine then tells Riselia that she has analyzed the bomb's functionality. She explains that one of her drones is behind the chandelier, deployed before the party started to check the ship's capabilities out of curiosity. She then explains that the wand in the hand of Jack sends a signal that triggers detonation. Riselia thinks it would be alright if they could block the signal. Elfine mentions that she can only delay the explosion with a single drone, and 1 second is all she can hold. Riselia asks her to let her prepare herself, and she then picks up a fruit fork lying on the ground, thinking that she can't use her holy sword but has the power of her vampire blood. Scene changes, and we see Leonis and Regina in the control room. They notice an artificial spirit there, and there is no one else present. Regina notices that the demihumans have locked the course of the ship and shut down the control panel, making it impossible for her to steer the ship. Leonis wonders about the princess's whereabouts, and Regina states that she briefly heard her voice through the carbuncle earlier. She might be able to determine her location if she hears it again. Leonis thinks of contacting his sister, as they share royal blood. Regina mentions that this would require her to reveal her existence to her sister. Leonis states that there are more important things at stake, and Regina agrees to give it a shot. She tries to contact Eltiria, gets through, and Eltiria wonders who she is talking to. Regina states that she is just a spirit medium passing by and asks Eltiria where she is. Eltiria mentions heading towards the flight deck and asks Regina to save the ship instead of her. She reveals that the course they are on will take them straight to the Void Reef, and instructs Regina to connect the carbuncle to the spirit monitoring system at the heart of the lowermost deck to take control of the ship. She tells Regina the access code, and Regina explains the situation to Leonis. Leonis asks Regina to take control of the ship, mentioning that he will save the princess. Regina worries about him going alone. Leonis then uses a fire spell to break the windshield and tells Regina that she is the only one who can take control of the ship. He promises that he will be fine, and Regina asks him to keep her sister safe. Leonis then leaves. The scene shifts to the banquet hall. We see that Riselia has laid out a thin thread of her blood close to Jack, and she asks Elfine to activate the jammer on her signal. Fenris then requests the demihumans to at least let the kids escape on the lifeboat, and the autopilot should be able to take them back to the city. Gerder tells her to shut up, threatening to kill her, but Elsa stops him. They then notice Sakuya eating something, and Gerder asks her how she freed herself. Gerder tries to go after her, but Elsa notices that she is a warrior from Oron. Gerder mentions that they are a clan of freaks who hunt voids to take revenge for their clan, and Sakuya states that they can kill her if someone has to die. Fenris claims she has the first dibs on this fight, and Gerder tries to attack her, but she manages to pin him down. Elfine then activates the jammer, and Riselia uses her blood thread to cut Jack's demon sword into pieces. Sakuya takes out Elsa, and Fenris also summons her holy sword, Frostwolf, to defeat Gerder. Riselia then takes out Jack, and with this, all demihumans are defeated. Sakuya then asks Riselia if Leonis is alright, and Riselia tries to contact him. She can't get through, and they notice that the ship is in the middle of a void reef, with the void starting to enter the ship. They manage to break into the banquet hall, and Riselia and her group try to hold them off. They defeat the voids easily, but more keep coming, prompting the holy swordsmen to evacuate the citizen. Leonis then contacts Riselia, mentioning that he is telepathically communicating with her using the keychain he gave her. Riselia asks him about his status, and Leonis mentions that they have neutralized the demihumans. But then the void showed up. He mentions that Regina is going to the lowermost deck to take control of the ship, and he asks Riselia to go and watch her back. Riselia states that she has to protect the people in the banquet hall, and Leonis mentions that he has already made arrangements for that. Leonis then notices Cherak taking Ulteria into a helicopter, and Ulteria asks her where she is taking her. Sharnak states that there are certain people who have a keen interest in spirits, and she will be their plaything. We then see a few voids attacking Regina while she is heading to the lowermost deck, and she gets surrounded. Riselia saves her, and we see that the Holy Swordsmen are still fighting the voids in the banquet hall. A Brain Eater class void then arrives, and Fenris tries to take them on, but she doesn't stand a chance as they are more powerful than the Merman class voids. Sakuya states that she will take care of them and instructs the others to evacuate the citizens. The others then evacuate all the citizens from the banquet hall, and Sakuya uses the demon sword Yami Chidori to fight the Brain Eater class void. Meanwhile, Riselia and Regina make their way to the lowermost deck, taking care of any voids they come across. Regina then takes control of the ship, revealing that the access code is the Scarlet Calamity. She remembers that Altera told her the Scarlet Calamity is the name of an awful ominous star, 2 words she could never forget. Regina turns the ship around by 180, and Sharnak tries to take off, leaving Giraffe behind to die, and the voids kill Giraffe. Altera notices the ship changing course and thinks the spirit medium must have done this. Sharnak then realizes she can't take off, and we see that Leonis is using hands made of shadows to keep her from flying away. Leonis takes out the voids around the helicopter, mentioning that Sharnak will be punished for terrorizing his kingdom. We then see that Elfine and the other holy swordsmen, along with the civilians, are surrounded by a number of voids with no way out. Sherry covertly takes out all the voids, thinking that Leonis really works her to the bone. Sukuya has also taken out the Brain Eater, and on the flight deck, Leonis asks Sharnak if she is the one who gave demon swords to the demihumans. He introduces himself as a demon lord, and Sharnak tells him not to go around playing as a demon lord. She attacks Leonis with a fire spell, but Leonis easily deflects the spell. Sharnak mentions that this spell belongs to the legendary demon lord, and Leonis states that this is a spell created by him, which is why it won't work on him. Leonis then binds Sharnak with some shadow hands and asks her what she is trying to accomplish. She states that she wanted to corrupt the holy swordsmen with nothingness, forge demon swords, and offer them to the goddess. Leonis wonders who she means by the goddess, as all of the gods perished 1,000 years ago. Cherach tries to reveal the goddess's name, but she is killed due to a demon sword popping out from her. This sight makes Alteria faint, and Leonis notices that this is the demon lord slayer sword called Zarmang. He wonders why it is here, and we see that Sharnak has transformed into a Void Lord along with the Demon Slayer sword. Leonis then uses level 8 sorcery to attack the Void Lord, but it absorbs the attack due to the property of the Demon Slayer sword to counter sorcery. The Void Lord then tries to attack Leonis by teleporting above him, and Leonis dodges. Regina notices this from a camera on deck and attacks the Voids using machine guns, managing to take out all the weaker Voids. However, this isn't enough to defeat the Void Lord. Regina then fires some missiles on the Void Lord, and Riselia uses one of the missiles to come to Leonis's aid. Leonis asks Riselia to buy him some time, and Riselia does so. Leonis uses this time to activate his demon sword, and then uses his Ragnos attack to take care of the Void Lord. The scene shifts to Altera thanking the holy swordsmen for their display of courage and bravery. She mentions that she also saw a young holy swordsman among them, and Riselia states that he couldn't make it as he was feeling under the weather. Altera mentions that she would also like to extend her thanks to the spirit medium who took control of the ship, and Riselia states that she also won't be joining them due to some extenuating circumstances. She mentioned that she did ask her to relay a message, and she said that she was delighted that the princess is safe and wished her a joyous future. Meanwhile, we see that Leonis has sore muscles because of using the demon sword, and he thinks that in the end, he wasn't able to gather information on the goddess. Regina then comes to check up on him, and she states that she has baked an apple pie for him. Leonis asks her if she is all right not seeing her sister, and Regina mentions that she is good as she did get to talk to her. She then kisses Leonis to thank him, and Leonis asks her not to tease him. Regina mentions that she is only thanking him and asks him to keep this a secret from Riselia. The story unfolds as the terrorists try desperately to escape, but the guards arrive just in time. They declare that everyone is under arrest for being accomplices of the terrorists. One of the guards points his sword at them, warning that their skills are no match for his weapon. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, expressing contempt for hearing inferior beings speaking arrogantly. The guard demands the hidden person to come out, but instead, the being casts a curse on the guards, petrifying them. Finally, the hidden person, revealed as Zal Vades, shows up. The monsters are puzzled by his identity. Zal Vades, using his magical powers, forces everyone to kneel and introduces himself as the Demon King, the true ruler of the world. He reveals that the human stone curse on the guards will disappear soon. To ensure a place to live, Zal Vades suggests that the monsters become his subordinates. The remnants of the Alpha Wolves Alliance submit to Zal Vades, and he proclaims them as the shadows of the Demon King. Zal Vades uses his magic to create an underground labyrinth. He explains that humans can't see the entrance to this room and instructs them to use it as a temporary headquarters. He orders the monsters to stop fighting for now but be ready for resistance against the Empire. In the middle of his explanation, Zal Vades receives a call from Riselia and decides to return. The scene shifts to Riselia, who is in her room, thinking about something Leonis mentioned regarding nocturnal animals. He told her that these creatures tend to gather around vampires. Wondering how to deal with this, Riselia decides to check on Leonis. As she opens her room door, she encounters Sherry. When Riselia tries to rub her eyes, Sherry takes the chance to dodge her. Undeterred, Riselia decides to take a shower first before looking for Leonis. Finally, Leonis shows up, commenting on Riselia being possessive and inconvenient. He mentions how her reputation almost ruined his image as an evil demon king. Despite this, Leonis is satisfied that he managed to control the radical survivors. Having them under his possession means the Demon King can use them to rebuild his demonic army. We then see Leonis head to Riselia's room, but he accidentally catches her changing. Quickly turning his back, Regina appears and asks if she's interrupting. They both deny it. The scene shifts to the cafeteria, where Riselia advises Leonis to eat vegetables for health. He promises to eat them later, but wonders if Riselia wants his blood to thin for easier sucking. A giant crow flies by the window, and Regina suggests finishing off the monsters. Riselia disagrees, finding the birds cute. Regina explains that their dormitory is considered haunted due to rumors of a ghost girl and a giant black dog. Riselia mentions seeing a girl in her dorm wearing a maid's outfit, cleaning Leonis's room. The boy dismisses it, suggesting Riselia might be seeing things. She asks him about his morning, and he reveals he was solo training for an upcoming practice match. Regina praises his motivation, and he mentions wanting to do his best for Riselia, who has always helped him. Meanwhile, Elfine tells the group that two attackers are coming from different directions. The grass explains that they need to defend the flags carefully, and from a distance so that melee fighters can move to the center and act as a distraction. This distraction allows the platoon leader to capture the flags. However, the counselor warns that if this strategy fails, they'll have serious problems. Riselia is then attacked by one of the stone wolves, but Fenris appears, expecting their presence. Riselia complains about the pain caused by Fenris's attack. Fenris explains that she adjusted her techniques according to combat rules. Riselia questions why Fenris, a platoon leader, is protecting a small flag. Fenris clarifies that she's being accountable to Riselia. Riselia interprets this positively, thinking it gives Sakuya time to advance for the main flag. However, Fenris knows Riselia's thoughts and explains that Sakuya struggles with enemies using stealth approaches. She mentions her frost wolves supporting Sakuya. Fenris reveals that she's already sent 2 people after Riselia's main flag, and Elfine and Regina will be overwhelmed fighting 2 opponents simultaneously. Leonis realizes Fenris is very intelligent. Fenris declares that if she defeats Riselia, her squad will win. She transforms her sacred sword into 2 weapons and leaves Riselia in charge of fighting. Fenris attacks Riselia, who questions if anyone is protecting her main flag. Fenris remains silent, and Riselia explains that if there's no one protecting the flag, she just needs to defeat it for her team to win. However, Fenris turns her wolves against Riselia, telling her not to talk nonsense. Meanwhile, Leonis defeats his opponent. Riselia, determined, frees herself from the stone wolves and defeats Fenris. Watching Riselia's performance, Leonis acknowledges her as his right-hand familiar. Dylian suggests Fenris could have won if she went straight for the main flag, but DeGrasse comments that the one-on-one fight is worth watching. She agrees that both platoons are naive in battlefield strategy. Baldur deduces that this naivety attracts a lot of people's attention. The scene shifts, and Riselia guides Leonis to take a shower. Leonis insists he can do it alone, but Elfine reassures him, explaining that the school allows children under 10 to bathe with their guardians. They decide to take a shower together. Regina playfully asks Leonis to check if Sakuya's breasts have grown, making him blush and look away. They return to discussing the fight, and despite the happiness of winning, Riselia points out that if Fenris hadn't been fixated on her, they might have lost. Sakuya apologizes to the girls, admitting she fell for the enemy's trap easily. Elfine reminds Sakuya that she defeated the enemy aiming for their main flag. Riselia encourages Sakuya, saying she just needs more battlefield experience to grow stronger. To celebrate their squad's progress, the girls hold hands, and Leonis joins in, although still very shy. We then see a guy named Nephax, revealed to be a Void Lord. He feeds a blue crystal with both demonic and holy swords. Nephax acknowledges the good job done by sharing, but is still curious about who defeated her. He then continues to place swords into a blue crystal, explaining that the time for the awakening of a prophesied goddess is approaching. The narrative then shifts to a ship tearing apart space and emerging on the ocean. Now, we return to the Riselia squad discussing recent events. Today, at a surveillance base located 1,000 kilometers to the northwest, an image was sent. DeGrasse informs them that they've already dispatched a drone to track any sign of a stampede quickly. Upon seeing the region, Riselia feels a sense of familiarity. DeGrasse explains that it's the third assault garden, which disappeared 6 years ago into void territory. Leonis notices that it is Riselia and Regina's hometown that was destroyed. Regina explains that the target is moving towards them automatically at a speed of 6 kilometers per hour, with its power plant previously shut down but mysteriously reactivated. Elfine calculates that if it continues like this, the third assault garden will collide with them in 7 days. The inspector informs them about emergency signals, suggesting possible survivors at the site. However, DeGrasse notes it could also be engine damage. The drone cannot gather more information, leading DeGrasse to assign Riselia and her squad to investigate the city. The mission involves searching for survivors and investigating the source of those signals. DeGrasse also asks them to try to stop the movement of the city, but they have only 72 hours to accomplish this. Exceeding this time frame would hinder the 7th Assault Garden from avoiding the city. DeGrasse emphasizes that if they encounter the void, their only option is to fight to protect themselves, aiming to prevent a large-scale void disaster. Elfine questions why this specific mission was given to them. Regress explains that this was the idea of the management agency. The girl questions whether this has anything to do with Riselia, considering she is a survivor of the third assault garden and the daughter of the late Duke. Upon hearing this, Leonis understands that humanity sees her as a hero, recalling similar treatment when he was worshipped as a hero. DeGrasse doesn't deny the possibility that Riselia's platoon was handpicked, but she believes they are indeed very strong. Riselia states that her entire squad will do their best to meet expectations. However, when the inspector asks Leonis to stay out of the mission due to his newcomer status, he disputes this, expressing his determination to help. Seeing his resolve, Riselia decides to let him join, assuring that she will protect him. Regress informs them that they will leave tomorrow morning. But first, she instructs them to undergo a physical exam. The next day, Leonis talks to his servants, mentioning something strange he noticed. He saw the flag of the sacred cult in a deserted city far away. He decides that he needs to investigate who is behind it. Blackies is put in charge of protecting the kingdom while he's away. As for Sherry, he asks her to come with him. During this, Leonis notices something odd about Blackies. His servant explains that the bow tie was given by a girl swordsman. Wearing it means he won't be considered a stray dog and can move around the dorm normally. They finally leave the kingdom, and on the way, DeGrasse informs them that they can sleep until they reach their destination. Regina offers her lap for Leonis to sleep, thinking he's tired from waking up early. However, Riselia enters their conversation, stating that Leonis should sleep on her lap because she is his guardian. Despite Leonis insisting he's fine, Regina takes out an earpick, insisting it's the perfect time to clean his ear. She then forcefully puts Leonis to sleep. In a flashback from 1,000 years ago, Riselia comments to the Demon King about time running out between them. The Demon King regrets this, considering their kingdom had just been created. Riselia explains that after disappearing, she will reincarnate from now on every 1,000 years. Riselia questions whether he will look for her in the future. The Demon King promises to find her, even if he has to travel to the end of the world, as he is a demon lord and always keeps his promises. Riselia asks him to promise one more thing: to end her life if she is not herself and is in a different form. As they are about to land at their destination, stepping into the city, Riselia explains that she will go with Leonis to the central garden to check. The others are tasked with finding the source of the emergency signal. Elfine mentions they will start looking for the food production center. To stay connected, she leaves one of her sacred swords with Riselia and Leonis. On the way to the central garden, Leonis instructs Sherry to accompany the 3 girls. Sherry is disappointed, thinking she would be assigned to protect him. However, the Demon King denies protection, emphasizing his power. Suddenly, Riselia recognizes the place, pointing to where establishments used to be. But everything has disappeared. She blames herself for just praying while her city was destroyed. Leonis reassures her that she is not to blame. Suddenly, they are attacked by a void, and Riselia ends up trapped in the rubble. The story continues with an elven girl appearing in Third Assault Garden. She realizes she's from 1,000 years ago and notices the city is lifeless. Wondering what happened, she wears a dress from a shopping complex. The girl, introduced as Arl Carlesio, believes she's here for the goddess's rebirth. Discovering the land is moving, she sees a dragon carrying Leonis and others. Nefekes explains it's a human mode of transportation, recognizing Arl as the elven hero. Nefekes then introduces himself. Arl wonders how Nefekes knows her, thinking he might be from the past too. Nefekes says that he is. Nefekes reveals that he knows that Arl's here to destroy the goddess's vessel using Krozix, the evil slashing blade, but he has a different objective from her. Arl thinks Nefekes might be the vessel's guardian. She attacks, but Nefekes disappears, leaving a void to deal with her. The story then returns to the present. In the present, Leonis saves Riselia from a Void's attack using shadow magic. The Void targets Leonis, who blocks it but loses Elfine's drone. Leonis attacks the Void with fire, but it has holy protection, resisting lower-level sorcery. Determined, Leonis vows to show real sorcery. Meanwhile, Elfine and others hear fighting sounds from Leonis and Riselia's direction. Elfine realizes her drone is gone, and they head to check on them. Leonis deflects Void attacks, using a gravity spell to pin it down. The Void frees itself, giving Leonis time to cast a level 9 spell and simultaneously attack with a Thunder spell, defeating the Void. Leonis goes to check up on Riselia, telling her that he managed to defeat the Void. He asks if she is hurt, and Riselia tries to deny it, but Leonis notices her injury. He mentions that recovering from an injury like this will take some time, even for a vampire's healing abilities. Leonis then thinks they need to find a place to hide, as more Voids might come any minute. Soon, some shadowy figures arrive, bearing the mark of House Christia. Riselia notices this, and one of them introduces himself as William Richmond, the head of the Order of House Christia. He mentions that he no longer possesses a physical body, but rushed to Riselia's side as quickly as possible. Leonis reflects on how souls of the dead with deep lingering regrets become trapped at the site of large battle, a common occurrence in the past but the first time he has encountered it in the present day. William states that Riselia must have received their distress signal, and he explains they send that signal to issue a warning. He warns that the tragedy of 6 years ago might be repeated if things continue as they are, and the 7th Assault Garden may be overtaken by a stampede. He mentions that a Void Lord has appeared in these ruins, and they were only able to manifest themselves due to its influence. Leonis thinks that this might be true, but nothing like this happened when Arl appeared in the 7th Assault Garden. William states that the Void Lord has merged with the city's power plant, and is amassing energy, bound to awaken before long. Riselia suggests they check this out, emphasizing the need for definitive proof if they want to evacuate the 7th Assault Garden. Leonis thinks that ghosts won't be considered a reliable source of information, and Riselia tries to move, but her injury gets in the way. Leonis tells her that she needs a place to rest for a while, and William suggests going to the mansion. In this case, he mentions that he has already arranged a car for Riselia, and he took the liberty of making preparations when he found out that Riselia would be coming here. The car then comes for Riselia, and she is surprised that ghosts can drive cars. Leonis states that it's possible, as a soul is formed from mana, and a car is a magical device. Leonis then thinks that the ghosts are driving too slowly and summons his undead horses to pull the car instead. They then head to the mansion. Elfine and the others arrive where Leonis and Riselia were, but they notice that it's too quiet, thinking the battle might already be over. They then meet Arl, trying to help her as they see her as a survivor. However, Arl attacks them. Sakuya decides to face her since she is wielding a sword, and Arl assumes they must be friends of Nefekas. Regina asks if Arl is the one who sent the distress signal, but Arl attacks them, saying she doesn't have time for idle chit-chat. Sakuya crosses swords with Arl and manages to defeat her, noting that Arl would have won if she weren't injured. Arl then collapses due to her injury. The scene then shifts to Nefekas looking at the goddess, who starts to sing. Meanwhile, in the car, Riselia is starting to feel better and asks Leonis if she can drink some of his blood. Leonis agrees, and Riselia jumps onto him, sucking his blood. Leonis worries that Riselia might drink all his blood, attempting to use the mark of control to stop her. Before he can, Elfine contacts Riselia, and she lets go of Leonis. Elfine then asks Celia if she's okay after their confrontation with the Void earlier. Celia mentions they took down the Void, and she sustained a small injury, but it shouldn't interfere with their mission. Celia then reports something, suggesting that a Void Lord might be hiding in the city. The power plant might have been deactivated because the Void Lord is tampering with it. Elfine thinks it makes sense, and Riselia suggests regrouping to check it out. Elfine decides they'll do that after treating the survivor they found. Riselia is surprised they found a survivor, and Elfine mentions they'll fill her in on the details later. Riselia tells them to rendezvous at the Crystalia estate. Elfine ends the call, and Leonis mentions he gave Riselia permission to drink his blood but not this much, or he'll pass out. Riselia apologizes, and Leonis says he has something for her, a dress. He explains it can convert a vampire queen's mana into physical strength, exponentially increasing her power. However, it also consumes mana rapidly, so she should be careful using it. Leonis stores the dress inside Riselia, and tells her to imagine herself wearing it to put it on. Riselia wonders why Leonis is giving this to her now, and Leonis mentions he doesn't think she's ready for it, but anything can happen from here on out, and he can't afford to let her get hurt again. Riselia realizes that Leonis is worried for her safety, making him blush. He then gives Riselia some skeleton keychains, mentioning that they are good luck charms, and Riselia thanks him for them. In another place, Regina tends to Arl's wounds, and Sakuya asks for Arl's name. Arl introduces herself, and Sakuya wonders why she attacked them. Arl explains that she thought they were allies of her enemy, someone who controls monsters. Sakuya asks if Arl means voids, and Arl mentions the monster being absurdly large. Aelfine states that Arl's name isn't in the 3rd Assault Garden's database, and wonders where she came from. Arl counters by asking the same question. Aelfine explains they're an exploration team from the 7th Assault Garden, sent to figure out why the city, which was destroyed 6 years ago, suddenly became functional again. She asks Arl why she's here, and Arl reveals she's here to vanquish the goddess. Aelfine doesn't understand, and Arl thinks the legend might have been forgotten over the years. Arl attempts to head out on her own, but her stomach growls. Sakuya shares some snacks, and Aelfine insists they can't leave Arl alone. Shur, who is watching them, wonders what Arl is doing in the future. Shirley explains that she was trained by the master swordsman Shard Dark, one of the 6 heroes. She assassinated several generals of the demon army and infiltrated Deathhold 3 times, even attempting to kill her master. Meanwhile, Nefekes states that the awakening of the goddess is drawing near. He discovers that the void he sent after the humans is dead and is surprised that a human managed to defeat it. He thinks it's time to take out the nuisances. Afterward, Leonis and Riselia arrive at the Crystal estate. Riselia is upset to see the estate in ruins. She goes inside the house, and Leonis sits on a chair, finding it comfortable and reminiscent of the old days. Riselia checks out her mansion, recalling the memories of all the time she spent there. She then heads to her father's study and is heartbroken to see it reduced to rubble. William and the others use their magic to create an illusion of Riselia and her father reading books. Seeing the illusion of the fun times she had with her father makes Riselia smile. Nefekes then arrives, and Riselia wonders if he is a survivor. Nefekes can't believe that Riselia mistook him for a human and gets angry. He attacks Riselia with a fire spell, prompting her to shout, and her scream alerts Leonis. It's revealed that Riselia is injured. The story continues as Riselia remembers the time when her father and other family members went to fight against the stampede. She asked to come with her father, but he told her to go with Regina and the others. Riselia pleaded with her father and other family members to come with them, but her father explained that he couldn't do that. He had the duty to protect the people living in the city. Riselia asked him to let her fight as well, and her father stated that she could once she awakened her holy sword. He then reminded her of the story about the Demon Lord, suggesting that there might be some truth to it. The Demon Lord, though evil, would appear in their world when needed the most to defeat the voids. Riselia then woke up and noticed 3 skeletons in front of her. Nefekes thought he might have gone a bit overboard with level 3 sorcery. He noticed some skeletons protecting Riselia, and wondered who could have summoned them. The undead stated that they seemed to have made it in time and were there to protect Riselia. Nefekes attempted to use level 6 sorcery, but Leonis blasted him with magic before he could. Riselia asked Leonis about the skeletons, and he explained that they were the good luck charms he had given her. The keychains were special amulets used to summon them. The undead introduced themselves as Nefeskel, the wizard of the spirit world, Dora, the champion of the Inferno, and Amilas, swordsman of the Ninth Circle. They claimed to be the 3 warriors of Rognes and started competing to take credit for saving Riselia. Leonis asked them to stop, and he noticed that Nefekes was all right after the spell. Seeing Nefekes' face, Leonis wondered why he was there. Nefekes attempted to attack Riselia, but Leonis overpowered his fire spell with an ice spell. Nefekes was surprised, and Leonis asked him what he was after. Suddenly, they all felt some tremors, and Nefekes began to laugh. He mentioned that Saint Terrace had fulfilled her role by devouring the offerings. He explained that the saint was the vessel of the goddess, and now the goddess would come back to life. This meant that his services were no longer required, and he took his leave, revealing that the world was destined to crumble at the hands of the goddess. Riselia then asks Leonis who this goddess is, and Leonis states that he is not sure. Leonis then recalls seeing Nefekes a millennium ago when he was a retainer to the Lord of the Underworld. He wonders what Nefekes was doing here and if the goddess he spoke of is Riselia. Leonis notices the symbol of the sacred order in the sky, connecting it to the testament of the past when mankind revered the gods. It has strong ties to Terrace as well. Amilas tells Leonis that they have to flee the building. They exit the building and notice something big emerging from underground. William states that this is the Void Lord he mentioned earlier, and Leonis observes that the Void Lord looks like Terrace. Elsewhere, Regina also notices the emergence of the Void Lord in several voids. Elfine tries to contact Riselia, but there is no reply. Sakuya then asks Arl to stay hidden, and she leaves to check things out. Elfine uses one of her drones to launch a signal beacon, mentioning that she has requested backup and advised evacuation. There should be enough time to clear the 7th Assault Guard, and given the circumstance, they don't have the option of retreating and flying back home. She states that defeating the Void Lord is their only option, and Regina suggests rendezvousing with Riselia and Leonis. Elfine mentions that they will need transportation first and asks the others to hold off the Voids until she can track down a vehicle. Some Voids then attack their group, and while hiding, Arl thinks that she can feel that the goddess has returned. The scene shifts to Riselia and the others fighting the Voids, realizing that these Voids can regenerate. Sakuya and Regina also discover this fact, wondering what's happening with these Voids. Aline runs a scan and finds out that their heads are their weak spots. Sakuya and Regina focus on attacking the Voids' heads to defeat them. Leonis also identifies the weak spot and believes Terrace, even as a Void, possesses a similar ability to restore life. The warriors, including Riselia, continue to defeat the Voids by targeting their heads. Leonis notices that the Void Lord is approaching, thinking it will save him the trouble of going to it. Meanwhile, Aline locates a vehicle, and the others follow her to its location. Arl also leaves the building to go somewhere. Leonis and the others persist in taking out the Voids, but Leonis realizes there is no end in sight. He decides to take a proactive approach and attacks the Void Lord with a level 10 spell called Aaron. The spell burns through everything in its path, including the Void Lord, but it regenerates instantly, surprising Leonis. The Void Lord then prepares to cast a level 11 spell, prompting Leonis and the undead to cast protective spells to shield Riselia. Aline and the others witness the destruction, seeing a fiery sky. Arl also observes the devastating spell and considers it dreadful. Aline takes action by hacking the vehicles. Leonis asks Riselia to protect him for a minute, intending to finish off the threat. The undead warriors offer their assistance to Riselia. Riselia manifests her blood wings, and together with the undead warriors, she fights the Voids effortlessly. Meanwhile, Leonis attempts to use his demon sword against the Void Lord, but the sword gets stuck in midair, refusing to move. He hears a voice asking if he intends to kill her with that demon sword. Surprised, Leonis realizes the voice belongs to Riselia. Riselia informs Leonis that he can't kill her with the sword she gave him. Despite the confusion, Leonis manages to attack the Void Lord with the demon sword, but the Void Lord defends itself. The Void Lord then unleashes arrows, injuring both Riselia and Leonis. Leonis falls from the sky, gravely injured. The Void Lord prepares for another level 11 spell. In response, Riselia dons the vampire dress that Leonis gave her and delivers a powerful long-range strike to the Void Lord, preventing it from casting the level 11 spell. The undead warriors protect Leonis from other Voids. Riselia checks on Leonis, who, in a dreamlike state, recalls a conversation with Riselia. In the dream, Leonis promises to find Riselia, but she asks him to make another promise, to kill her if she becomes something else entirely. Upon regaining consciousness in Riselia's arms, Leonis urges her to run away, feeling responsible for involving her in this situation. He contemplates whether Riselia has been corrupted by the Voids and questions why he has been brought back to this world after 1,000 years. Leonis believes there's no point in his existence if Riselia is not with him. He recalls telling Riselia that he won't kill her, but she asked him to forget what she said, reminding him to find her true self. Riselia mentioned that the demon sword she gave him would guide him to his fate. Determined, Leonis starts to move. Leonis awakens, realizing that Riselia had placed a seal on his memory to make him forget his promise to her. Despite this, he is determined and stands up, witnessing Terce regenerating. He vows to do whatever it takes to find the real Riselia. Picking up the demon sword again, Riselia inquires about his wounds, and he explains that he's now fine because she saved him by using her mana to heal him. Confused about the timing of his returned memories, he wonders if it's because of Riselia returning the blood she had drained from him. Turning to Riselia, Leonis asks her to rip part of her dress, and she complies. He uses it to fully heal his wounds as Terce begins to rise, and the two prepare to fight. However, their plans are interrupted by William, who also wants to lend his strength. William asks if Leo can use his magic to put their souls to rest, feeling like they've fulfilled their duty as knights of Celia's family. Riselia asks if he can do it, and Leo confirms that he can. One of the knights explains that some knights' souls turned into voids when Terrace appeared 42 days ago. Leonis looks around and sees several soul orbs, realizing that Terrace turned into a void lord on the same day his seal was broken. Terrace used the souls of the knights, turning them into voids to attack the assault garden. William asks for their wish to be fulfilled, and Leonis promises to give them a place for their souls to rest. He uses the demon sword to cast a spell that absorbs all the souls into an orb. The knights express gratitude for fulfilling their last request, but Leo has another favor to ask. He wants the knights to help them and summons several skeleton knights from the ground, merging the knights' ghost forms with these new bodies. William realizes that he can now fulfill his duty as a knight. Turning to Riselia, Leonis explains that he still hasn't recovered enough power to defeat Terrace. That's why she and the knights must find a way to buy him some time, especially since Terrace will summon several other voids. Riselia assures him, raising her holy sword, and uses her own blood to create several spears for the knights. Every skeleton knight gets excited, ready to join the fight. Meanwhile, Elfine finishes getting ready with her team to face the Void Lord. They gear up to leave on their bikes, but Arl stops them. She expresses her desire to join the fight. Regina thinks it's not a good idea since Arl is still injured. Suddenly, a void approaches Arl, but she effortlessly deletes it with a swing. Impressed, the girls learn that Arl is strong enough to take on the Void Lord. Arl claims her holy sword was made to destroy these monsters. Sakuya steps forward, suggesting that defeating the Void Lord would be easier with her power. She asks Aline to let her join, promising to protect the girls if anything goes wrong. Aline agrees, and they prepare to head out. Back with Riselia, she's battling the voids alongside the soldiers. Each soldier proves capable of handling the monsters, giving Leonis the time he needs to recover his power by absorbing the remaining lost souls. However, Leonis feels like it's taking too long. Meanwhile, the girls are on their way to meet Leonis and Riselia but notice a large number of voids around. Aline decides to use her power to drive Regina's bike, allowing Arl to attack the flying voids. Regina accepts the plan and summons her cannon to shoot down the beast. A void targets Aline, but Sakuya swiftly slices it in half. Riselia instructs the knights to move forward while maintaining formation. However, she doesn't notice a void attacking her from behind. One of the skeletons defeats the void, and another catches her. To Riselia's surprise, she realizes she isn't injured. The skeletons explain it's because she has the Vampire Queen's power, possibly due to her dress, as Leonis had mentioned it would help her control her power. Riselia flies back up to continue the fight, determined to protect Leonis. Strangely, the skeletons start flying and defeating several voids in midair, showcasing their surprising strength. Riselia then notices something on her back. Leonis is absorbing a massive quantity of souls, and the ball has become huge. The Void Lord observes this and begins casting several magic circles. Leonis knows this is bad, realizing he still needs more time to use his full power. Terce's magic circle changes direction toward them, prompting Leonis to yell at everyone to run away and take cover. The situation intensifies as they brace for the impending clash with the formidable Void Lord. Terce, the powerful foe, activates magic, launching magma balls toward everyone. In response, pairs of people group up, with one creating a shield using magic while the other flies them away to safety. Riselia checks on Leonis, who reassures her that he's okay but needs a bit more power. Elfine and the girls watch the battle from a distance, trying to contact Riselia. Regina is worried, but Elfine isn't sure about everything. Suddenly, a massive void appears behind them. Regina attempts to shoot it down, but it proves resilient. The void activates a powerful move with 4 laser beams. Out of nowhere, Sherry intervenes, using a whip to thrust the void into a building and destroy it. She calmly mentions that she completed her task as the Demon Lord and heads back to the battle. The skeletons, doing their best to defeat the voids, continue their efforts. Leonis finishes absorbing enough power, creating a huge ball. However, Terce conjures another spell with multiple magic circles. Leonis begins transferring the absorbed souls into his demon sword. Strangely, Terce forgets about her magic circles and decides to pick up a building instead. Unable to move, Leonis combines Riselia's Vampire Queen powers with her holy sword to slice the building in half. Leonis recalls Roselia's words, realizing that she asked him to kill the future fake version of her and find the real goddess. He charges the sword with the power of the souls and activates his own power. However, Terce activates a divine shield, surprising Leonis. Nevertheless, he has no other option. Meanwhile, the girls are getting closer to Terce. Arl gets up, charging up her attack. Sakuya instructs Elfine to get them closer, and everyone prepares to attack simultaneously. Sakuya and Regina use their holy swords to open a breach in the barrier, giving Arl an opportunity to cast her attack. The attack hits Terce, who deactivates the barrier. Leonis is confused about who broke the barrier, but doesn't have time to dwell on it. He uses all the stored power and casts it on Terce. The void's body slowly starts disappearing, leaving Riselia in disbelief. She recalls her father's words about the Demon Lord appearing to protect humanity from the voids. The voids vanish, followed by Terce. The assault city stops moving, signaling their victory. In the aftermath, the souls of the knights leave the skeleton bodies. William expresses pride in fighting alongside Riselia in their final moments. Riselia mentions that he would be prouder if he fought alongside her parents and sister. Before disappearing, William reveals that she's the last survivor of the family and should make them all proud. The girls arrive, and Riselia runs towards Regina's arms. The group is overjoyed to see everyone safe. Sakuya explains that Arl helped destroy the divine barrier. Choppers arrive, and Fenris is relieved that Riselia and the rest are safe. They quickly step inside, marking the end of their intense battle. Leonis becomes certain that Arl is the one who destroyed the barrier. However, he's puzzled about how a hero from 1,000 years ago could still be alive. Riselia notices his concern and asks why he looks worried. Leonis assures her that he's fine. He spots a book in her hands and learns that she found it in her father's study, deciding to keep it as a memento. Unfortunately, she can't understand the language in the book, but she mentions that her father could read it, and it talks about the Demon Lord. Leonis is surprised, and Riselia explains the legend of the Demon Lord, once a hero. Leonis's reaction nearly gives him away, and Riselia wonders why he's acting strange. Despite this, he manages to brush it off. Upon returning, Leonis informs Blackus about Nefekes and instructs him to investigate. He reveals that Nefekes caused the situation with Terse and believes he must know something about Riselia. Sherry also shares her concerns about Arl, warning Leonis to be careful. Shelley then asks if Leonis gave the true ancestor dress to Riselia. He confirms that he did, and she playfully calls him an idiot while looking at her maid dress. Leonis, puzzled, asks her why she's calling him an idiot, which agitates him. Suddenly, Riselia enters the scene, and Leonis, upon seeing her, asks why she is dressed in a particular way. She explains that the dress used up all her mana, leaving her unable to wait any longer. Without hesitation, she jumps on Leonis to drink his blood, and he requests her to be gentle. The focus then shifts to Regina, who announces that she will prepare some sweets for Leonis. Meanwhile, Elfine is conducting research, suspecting a possible connection between the attacks on the 7th Assault Garden and the 3rd Assault Garden. The narrative then transitions to Sakuya, who is training with the goal of surpassing Arl. The scene changes to Arl, who gets up and wonders about her whereabouts. Realizing that she hasn't faded yet, she believes there must be something she has to do. Arl decides to take action, stealing the sword and breaking the wall to run away. This alerts everyone, and Leonis reflects on the rowdiness of his kingdom. However, he decides to let it go, acknowledging that he hasn't gained complete control of the kingdom yet. Nonetheless, he understands that it's not the end. He has to find Riselia and expand his forces until all human territories belong to him. Additionally, he expresses the desire to re-establish his Demon Lord army and make the humans bow at his feet. But for now, he wants to enjoy his time with Riselia. This brings an end to our episode.